we did get a fantastic look at the Dead Space remake. And I admit I only watched the full thing this morning. I was kind of like seeing snippets of it through the week, and I am like, you can't be serious. But I'm going to put it full screen right here with B-roll. If you're watching live or watching this replay, look at this shiz right here and tell me that is not a significant difference. Now, the character is wearing different armor, but there's a lot more than just visually, because obviously, it's like over a decade later. But the thing that I love about this remake is they are making it bigger while also honoring the legacy of Dead Space. And Josh, have you played Dead Space really quick?
I played Dead Space 2. I did not play the original. So this will be a new experience for me, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. So I worked my way through a couple chapters of it and bailed because horror games and me don't get along. But this is a fantastic horror game. I'm not going to deny that. Like it was fantastic. It's just not a Toaster game. But even the B-roll that I have on screen right here, you could not do this in the original. This is a next-gen only remake of a game from over 10 years ago, and he's flying around this ship in a way that they didn't have in the original. So they're not only remaking it, they're adding things to make it an even grander experience. They talk about less, I guess there's that mechanic where in between levels you rode this train, which I do recall, and you would ride this train to kind of load in the next section. But now it just all happens continuously. There's no load screens that happen at all. It's just one continuous adventure in this horrific sight of a place. But between the lighting, the gameplay, and so much stuff, I love the quality of this remake. And them adding on top of it instead of just putting a new skin on it. They actually are truly remaking the game from the ground up, adding more to it, new mechanics. I don't know if this is in the original, but there was a part where you actually micromanage how much life support the ship has and how much lights it has. So there's like, I don't know if that was in the original or not, but I saw that in this too, and I'm like, this is looking great. It's not a Tony game, but I just on a critical sense, this is looking fantastic.
It really seems like they. It really seems like they saw what Capcom did with Resident Evil and just basically were like, let's do this with Dead Space, and it does seem, based on my experience with Dead Space 2, admittedly I didn't play the first one, it does look like they're just staying true to the original while, like, it looks like the devs played the original and were like, oh man, imagine what we could do with this part of the game, and then they did that without hopefully messing with the formula to make it something that it wasn't in the first place, if that makes sense.
And that's a really hard thing to nail. I did want to shout that out too, that like in order to make a great remake, you have to really keep like the spirit of the original in mind and not completely change how it feels. And that's the other thing I was seeing in this is that like this feels like it's the original Dead Space, but just modern day and bigger kind of a thing. Oh, and there's voice acting. That's actually another thing. The original game, the main character didn't have voice acting, but I guess they added a voice actor now, which I kind of like personally. I like to have a voice acting instead of just being a silent person, but at least for a game like this. But
I don't remember if there was voice acting in the second one, but I do remember that Isaac Clarke was a cool character, and I liked him. So I'm glad that we get to hear him in this one.
Gamey Do a podcast in the chat with a good question. He's like, the game is coming out the game's coming out in January, and then Callisto Protocol is coming out in December. Which looks very similar to this. Same devs that made Dead Space, by the way.
Yeah.
Will Collision take away from the release of Dead Space Remake? That's a good question. I don't know. They're a month apart.
I think it might. Yeah. I mean, I tend to kind of get my fill of a certain genre if it's not like my favorite genre just by playing one game. So I can see myself playing Callisto Protocol if it is awesome and then just being like, I'm good on sci-fi space horror for a little while.
Right.
Not playing Dead Space. So
especially after your nerves are done with it. I don't want to go through that again.
So I haven't been buying a lot of games at full price lately. It's just
Right.
I'm sure both of these games are going to be $70. Like, do I want to spend
Yeah.
$140 on two games that are kind of similar? And I'll definitely play Callisto Protocol because I think that game, what they're doing with like gore in that game looks so crazy.
Oh yeah, the gore
I want to see
especially
that.
is
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see people get ripped apart.
Yes,
Yes.
I definitely do.